Hello, Kaylee here. Welcome back to my channel, and thank you so much for being here. In today's video, we're going to be doing a Tuft with me Q&A where I'm going to be tufting a light gray Pitbull rug. So with all that being said, let's get started and answer some questions. Alright, so the first question is, when did I start my business? I started my small business when I was 17, but I didn't officially open my small business until I was 18, which was in 2023. After I quit dance when I was 16, I had a lot of free time and I honestly did not know what to do with myself. At that time, I did not want to jump into anything really fast because during that time, my main focus was to relax and repair my mental health and physical health, and I didn't want to prioritize anything else but those three things. So once I was done with my little hibernation stage, I did a lot of brainstorming on what I wanted to do next, and I just thought, hey, why not start a small business? As a quick little backstory, growing up, I was always a pretty artsy and crafty kid, but the only thing that I really explored was crocheting. I had other interests and things I wanted to try out, but at that time, I could not explore them because I honestly didn't have time because I was dancing almost 7 days a week. But at that time, being that I was done with dance, I now had time to focus on the things that I always wanted to do. So when thinking about what I wanted to make for my small business, crocheting didn't really cross my mind because I view crocheting as more of a hobby than something I can make commercial use out of. So I went on to YouTube University and did some research on certain crafts and hobbies that I can do for my small business. And then I came across punch needling, which piqued my interest. But then I came across tufting, which really sealed the deal on what I wanted to make for my small business. Which leads us to the next question, which is, how did I start making rugs / why did I get started? I always had a fascination with something so simple as yarn, thread, fabric, or really anything turned into a beautiful creation. And with tufting, that immediately piqued my interest because the supplies are so simple. Like, if you really think about tufting, all the supplies you need is yarn and cloth, and just that alone makes a rug or keyboard rug mat or even wall art, and that itself amazes me. And some may think that that's not really special, it's basically just common knowledge, but to me, that amazes me, and that is why I do what I do, because I find that stuff very interesting. But getting back on track, I never thought in a million years how rugs were made or even knew if you could make a rug. So when I came across tufting, I was immediately intrigued and knew that I wanted to start my business with tufting. So with all the research I learned and really fixating my time and energy on tufting, I went to my mom and she helped me get the supplies I needed, and I started my tufting journey. Once I got all the supplies and actually started the practicing stage, I immediately knew that this was for me. When tufting and just the overall process of rug making, I found it so relaxing and therapeutic, and every time I make a tufted piece, I am seriously so fascinated over what I made. Even now, I have those moments of like, yeah, okay, I made that. Like literally, I made that. But the one thing I can admit is in the beginning, I really dove headfirst into tufting, which I do not regret in the slightest, but I do feel like I could have done things differently. A couple of videos ago, I touched on a certain topic, but I'm going to bring it up again because it is a question I was asked, and I honestly like answering these kinds of questions because it can help someone getting into tufting. And that question is punch needling a good alternative for beginners? And my answer is absolutely, for a plethora of reasons. With the main reason being, a tufting gun is pretty pricey and can be a really big commitment because of the price. And if you feel like you're not ready to commit to a tufting gun, a punch needle is always an option because basically it does the same thing as a loop pile tufting gun. And getting a punch needle also eliminates you learning how to carve and the whole process of that. So yeah, I think a punch needle is an amazing alternative. Also, learning how to punch needle is incredibly simple and very easy to pick up. But on the other hand, with tufting, it is challenging because of the pressure you need to give and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, punch needle is very ideal for people who are looking to get into rug making. But the one thing to keep in mind that punch needling for a prolonged amount of time can lead to hand and wrist strain. So be aware of that, know your limits, and really prioritize your physical health, because I've gone through it and tried to push through when my hands hurt, but it just hurt more. So yeah, just don't be like me and know your limits. The next question is, how long does an average piece take you to make? When it comes to making an average piece like this one, for example, it took me about 2 weeks to complete. And when I say complete, I mean the time I spent tufting, carving, leveling, and even adding the backing. This rug realistically would have been done in like a week and a half, but during that time I ran out of black yarn and I was also waiting for my backing to arrive, so it took me a little bit longer to complete the rug, but I got it done. Almost all of my rugs, I completed them in a span of 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks, depending on how detailed that rug is, or if I end up running out of supplies halfway and having to stop the whole process to go get some more yarn. I do make it my mission to get my tufted piece done in a timely manner, because I have noticed as time goes on, your tufting fabric starts to give and it becomes less stable, if that makes sense. Like when you first put up your tufting cloth, it should sound like a drum. It should be very pulled and tight just so nothing gives when you're tufting. But as you start to tuft over time and leave it on the frame, it starts to settle and it becomes less tight. And when your tufting fabric starts to settle and becomes not tight anymore, you have a really high chance of making holes in your tufted piece, which sucks and makes you scrap the entire thing because you cannot work when there is a hole in your fabric. That's just one thing I've noticed when I leave my tufted piece on my frame for too long and kind of step away from tufting for a while, and it kind of starts to not have any more give, and yeah, it's not fun when your tufting fabric is settling and makes it very difficult to tuft. So yeah, I just keep that in mind. So yeah. The next question is, how do I price my tufted pieces? When I first got started and just overall started making my tufted products, pricing was a very scary thing, and I was overall very intimidated by it. And I was extremely stumped when it came to making my prices because I did not want to oversell my product and I didn't want to undersell it. I was over time starting to get very overwhelmed because I was trying to keep in mind the value and the time it takes me to make my tufted pieces, and I really wanted that price to reflect that. Then one day I just looked around. I went on Etsy, I went on other tufting small business websites and just looked around to see how they price their tufted pieces. Then I gave a hard look at my pieces, trying to determine the price, and I eventually came up with my prices. Fast forward to present day, I am now confident in making my prices, and when I do make a new tufted piece, I can immediately come up with a price and not feel overwhelmed or frustrated. The one thing that did really help me was pricing my pieces by their size. For example, my circular rugs are one price, my more abstract shaped rugs are another price, and my small area rugs are another price. I like doing that because it makes my listings and my site overall look neat and professional, and overall just look very unified and satisfying to see certain prices in certain sections for certain sizes, if that makes sense. Did that make any sense? I don't know if it made sense. I just said it, but I hope that makes sense. The next question is, what type of yarn do I recommend for tufters? I will always suggest using acrylic yarn for those getting into tufting. And acrylic yarn is just recommended for tufting because it's just easier to work with than other types of yarn. Acrylic yarn is not only easier to work with, but it's also quite budget friendly compared to a cotton or wool yarn. But I will mention that the cost can add up quickly since tufting usually requires you to buy acrylic yarn in pairs instead of singles, so just be aware of that. But overall, I absolutely recommend acrylic yarn for tufters in general. And when I mention acrylic yarn, I am referring to the type that's ideal for crocheting and knitting. My go-to choice that I always recommend is Red Heart acrylic yarn. I found with Red Heart, they provide a good variety of colors, making them basically the holy grail for tufters. Well, my holy grail. Hopefully, I'm not the only one though. Oh, and recently I stopped by Michael's and was really impressed by their selection of their brand name acrylic yarn, which I'm excited to try out in the future and definitely will try them out in the future. They have an amazing array of vibrant colors and unique shades that can be really hard to find elsewhere. They have a lot of pretty pastel colors and just really amazing shades, but the one downside that I noticed is that their yarn isn't available in jumbo sizes, which I don't know if it's because of the Michaels that I went to didn't have jumbo sizes, but overall they need to have jumbo sizes and I need to find jumbo sizes immediately. But besides that, I am still tempted to use their acrylic yarn because of their color ranges. So that is strong enough for me to overlook that limitation, but I'm gonna give them a shot when it comes to my upcoming tufting projects. Now, moving on to the next and final question, which is, what is my favorite tufted piece I've made/sold? To answer that question, I have to say my brown Pitbull rug. I created that rug in 2023 and I recently sold it this year. I felt a mix of sadness and excitement, but overall excitement because I knew it was going to someone who would cherish it just as much as I did. But even though my beloved Pitbull rug is gone, it still remains my favorite. So I thought, but after making this rug, this is not my favorite rug I've ever made. Alright, so I am done with my carving process, so here is the end result, all leveled and carved and detailed. I really enjoyed making this rug and I hope you enjoyed today's video. And if you like today's video, feel free to like it and subscribe while you're at it and turn on the notification bell to stay notified for when I post a new video. If you want to stay connected with me and my small business, all of my social media accounts are linked in the description box below, along with my website where I showcase and sell my creations. And if you want to check out this rug that I made in this video, it will be linked in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in to today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and with all that being said, I will see you next time. Bye!